Viewers, when Ibrahim Traoré recently released millions of creatures into his newly created artificial river, the whole world was stunned for a moment. People were left wondering what kind of step this was. Everywhere else, when artificial rivers are built, fish are released so that fishing can grow. Some create special sections for animals like crocodiles to promote tourism. But Ibrahim Traoré did something that nobody had ever imagined. He did not release crocodiles or rare fish. Instead, he chose an animal that most of the world only sees, as a wood-gnawing insect-like creature, the beaver. But the question is, why beavers? What exactly was Ibrahim Traoré's real aim? And how can this animal transform an artificial river into not just a tourist spot, but into a natural system of life? We are going to uncover all of this in today's video. That's why I request you to watch this video till the very end. Viewers, if we take a look at the recent history of Burkina Faso, we see a reality that turned the lives of millions of people into misery. And that reality was water scarcity. This was a crisis that did not only affect people, but also crops, animals, and even choked the very breath of the land itself. Entire villages dried up. People kept digging wells until they grew tired. Women walked for miles carrying water, only to return with water that was either contaminated or used up before reaching home. In such situations, when a child cried out of thirst, a mother was left with nothing except prayers. It even reached the point where people were forced to pawn their honor, their land, and sometimes even their children just for a single sip of water. This was the time when the rains had stopped, as if nature itself had turned away in anger. But at that very moment, a young leader rose to the scene, Ibrahim Traoré. After his arrival, it was not just slogans that were raised, but real practical steps were taken. And among those steps, the biggest was the creation of an artificial river. Yes, when the entire world was focusing only on dams and water tanks, Ibrahim thought, if we do not get natural rains, then why not create an entirely new environmental system ourselves? And under this thought, a grand project began. Hundreds of kilometers of canals were dug, land was leveled, and to store rainwater, a massive artificial river came into existence. At first, people were surprised. Some mocked him, saying this was a waste of money. But as soon as the first year of this project passed, the results silenced everyone. Where once crops used to dry up, now greenery started to flourish. Hope awakened in the eyes of farmers. Livestock began receiving clean water. This artificial river was no longer just a water reservoir. It had become a symbol of new life. Children from villages, who had grown up without ever seeing a river, were now playing in its water. Farmers, who once only prayed for rain, were now watering their crops themselves and living prosperously. The economy started improving. People began cultivating new lands, and small businesses started opening in the surrounding areas. The government named this project a People's Revolution, and Ibrahim Traoré began to be seen as a savior. But as with every path of progress, there are always challenges, and this artificial river too began facing them. In the beginning, when the water was flowing, everything looked natural. The river kept moving, the land absorbed it, and birds came to its banks to sing. But with time, the flow of water slowed. Mud, leaves, and debris began to collect in the riverbed. In some areas, the water started stagnating. Mosquitoes multiplied rapidly, and clean drinking water started to become scarce again. Where once crops were fresh, now waterlogging began destroying them. People started complaining that the water was no longer the same, and some even stopped using it. The situation reached such a point that along some banks, green-blue layers began to form on the surface, a sign that the water was becoming polluted. This was a warning bell. If something was not done immediately, this project, which had become the hope of Burkina Faso, could itself turn into a disaster. And friends, this is where the turning point came. Ibrahim Traoré made yet another revolutionary decision, one that may look simple, but behind which lay the deep wisdom of nature. The very first thing he did was gather all the trusted experts of the country, environmentalists, water specialists, and engineers, and held long consultations with them. Not only from his own country, but also models from abroad were studied. The systems of those nations that used modern technology to keep their rivers clean were examined carefully. In many countries, large filters, pumping systems, and machines were installed to purify polluted water. But these methods were extremely expensive, consumed huge amounts of energy, and were harmful to the environment. For a country like Burkina Faso with limited resources, it was impossible to install machines every few kilometers to clean the river. So Ibrahim once again turned to nature. He thought that since the problem had disturbed nature, the solution must also be sought from nature's lab. He gave his experts one directive: we will not burden the earth. We will give the land a chance to breathe. With this mindset, new research began in the country. And finally, the experts reached a creature that had been hidden from the human eye for centuries. That creature was the beaver. Viewers, the beaver is a medium-sized rare animal, usually found in North America, Europe, and some specific regions. It is called nature's engineer. This animal cuts trees on riverbanks and arranges the wood to build natural dams. These dams not only regulate the flow of water, but also help in cleaning it, settling pollution, enriching the soil, and creating an entire natural aquatic system. The magic of the beaver is that wherever it lives, life returns. Ibrahim decided that to clean the artificial river, there would be no costly machines, no power plants. Instead, beavers would be released. This decision seemed strange to the world, unbelievable to outsiders, and even laughable to local people, because they did not know that these small, innocent-looking animals are actually among the most intelligent and hardworking engineers of the natural world. Within just weeks, when the beavers were released along the artificial river, they immediately began their natural work, without stopping, without training, without any orders. They started chewing the soft trees along the banks, gathering branches and twigs, mixing mud and grass, and building dams. And within just 1 month, dozens of small natural dams had formed inside the river. These dams balanced the water flow, prevented stagnation, and gradually settled the pollution at the bottom. A few weeks later, when experts tested the water samples, they were astonished. The water that was once smelly and polluted had now become clean, crystal clear, and blue. Fish, which were dying earlier, started returning. Birds that had migrated away began coming back to this natural habitat. And most importantly, people once again started filling their pots from this very river, without any filters or machines. But viewers, it wasn't just the water that got cleaned. The land around the river began to turn green. New grass started growing. Local herbs and plants returned. And the credit for all of this went to the beavers, who silently and tirelessly kept working day and night. These animals, who live away from humans, never complain, never ask for money, and never consume energy. They simply restore the life of a river under the laws of nature. Today, in Burkina Faso, beavers are even mentioned in school textbooks. Posters of them are put up on walls. Children are listening to their stories. And the world is looking at this model as a successful example. This was the moment when the whole world realized that if humans become friends with nature, nature never responds with enmity. And these beavers proved that the solution to mankind's greatest problems is not always in machines, but in the hidden secrets buried in the heart of the earth. So viewers, this was our video for today. Do tell us in the comments how you found it. And for more such interesting videos, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until the next video, Allah Hafiz.